Welcome back to Railway Mania. I am joined today by Luke Hudman, Marketing Manager of the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, one of Britain's best known and biggest preserved railways. We're going to be talking about the second annual Love Your Railway campaign. You may have seen this on social media this summer. It's running from 25th of July to 4th of September and includes over 80 like-minded organisations. Luke, welcome to the show.
Hello, yeah, thank you for having me.
Before we get started on the campaign, I wanted to ask you a few questions about your personal interests. So what's your background and how did you become interested in railways?
I've been interested in railways since I was about 5 years old. My family got me involved. It started from my granddad, my dad. They used to go to the battlefield line in Leicestershire, and I used to go along with them and help out. And obviously, yeah, just get mucky really over the weekend. Didn't really help much at all. Which was probably to my mum's delight, really. But yeah, it was good fun, and it got me hooked from an early age, and it progressed from there. I mean, unfortunately, I went to university, so I came away from railways for a little bit, and then through job and life and how things go on, you sort of come away. But then I decided actually I need to get back involved again, and I was living in Warwickshire at the time. And got involved with my local railway at the time, which was the Gloucester and Warwickshire Steam Railway, where I progressed to become a fireman there. Still a fireman, still go down there and volunteer. I live in Yorkshire currently, so it's a good commute, but I go down there for a few days at a time. They've got some really good facilities down there. And yeah, so when the job came along at the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, it's sort of a dream job, really. Why not take it? It was something I've always been passionate about. I've been in marketing for all my career, really. So it was a dream job.
Wonderful Venn diagram of job and interest that you bring together. But you started as the marketing manager of the NYMR just as COVID was kicking off in April 2020.
That's correct.
So how was that as a job introduction, and what were the challenges for marketing a railway in that period that wasn't even open or operating at the time?
It was quite daunting, and it was very scary, if I must admit. I was moving whole house, home, family, everything. So there was a lot of pressure and strain on there, but actually it was actually quite refreshing, because it got me to learn all about the nooks and crannies of the railway without actually seeing the railway as a whole. For probably 4 months of my job, I actually worked in Warwickshire just on Zoom, just learning how things work, how things happen, and obviously things were changing as well, and getting to know people on Zoom. I actually didn't get to meet everybody until probably I was in, well, it must have been over a year before I really, and there's still people I probably haven't met now, but it was very weird with people on furlough. But it's been very good. It's been a whirlwind. It's been frustrating at times. There's been ups and downs, but on the whole, it's great to actually see people enjoying the railway. And I think now, this summer especially, we're starting to get numbers back in droves. And we've got our challenges this year with the dry weather, and I think a lot of railways at the moment are struggling with that too. But yeah, it somehow, with all of our volunteer efforts, with everybody's mindset, it seems to work. It seems to pull through. And
I remember that the NYMR famously ran trains. The first set of trains they ran back were called the Optimist specials.
Yeah,
they did.
That was correct.
Which summed up the energy, I think, that everybody felt at the time.
Well, I think that was where the name came from, to be honest. It was almost like, we don't really know what's happening, so let's give this train a name that's going to stand out to people. And I think it did, actually. I think volunteers, when you're not doing something for such a long period of time, I think it does affect people's mental health, and I think it really does help people to get out there volunteering, doing the things they love, and it definitely shows today. So
absolutely, and for so many people, volunteering and working on railways is their social circle. It's their interaction with other people. So I mean, they were feeling it as much as anybody else, that feeling of being cut off from the world.
And one of the good things about here, actually, about that community spirit, and one thing that really stood out to me during COVID, during lockdown, a lot of the drivers and the firemen, they actually started doing online MICs, which is the mutual classroom courses. It actually brought people together. It gave people an opportunity to talk about things that possibly they've never experienced whilst out on the footplate, and to share those experiences, to share that knowledge.
Well, the one thing it did give to everybody was time, wasn't it? So exactly. People finally had the time to explain how their job worked on various tips and things like that for when things finally came back.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, it must have been incredibly hard in that uncertainty and not knowing when you were going to reopen, reminding people that you were there all the time and trying to keep your head above water at the same time?
Yeah, it was a challenge. I think we and many people were all in the same position. I think everybody did the best they could. Yeah, it would have been nice to have a bit more certainty into what was going to happen, but we made it through. And thanks to everybody who donated through the crisis appeal, everybody who came to visit when we were back open. I know it was challenging. I know it was very limited at the time, but it was all very much appreciated, and it's kept us going, really.
I think what I've seen is that people are very understanding, even if you have to run like a limited service or there's not as much that's open as before. Everybody understands, and I think that's really positive. And was that sense of optimism what was behind the Love Your Railway campaign? Was that born from that?
It was. So I'm sat in my bedroom, really, just tapping away every day, and it's like, what's going to make us, what's going to really bring us above the parapet? Everybody seemed to be. There seemed to be a lot of noise about COVID. There seemed to be a lot of things about places reopening. But what was going to make us different? What was going to make us stand out? And I think it was that unity of actually the heritage railways all coming together and actually showcasing what we've got, what we do for our volunteers, what it means to our volunteers and what it means to our visitors. That really came through from that first year and is coming through this year as well. It's great seeing people interact. It's great seeing people getting involved. And yeah, it's just something to feel good about.
So what's the idea behind it? How would you summarise Love Your Railway in a nutshell?
It's a social media campaign that all railways are welcome to get involved in. There's no limit, there's no commitment really to it. All we want to do is we want you to post on social media. For the 6 weeks of the campaign, we've got a different theme. So the first theme was heritage, then we've got conservation, partnerships, volunteering, and then family and education, which we think are probably one of the most main key features of our railway. They're the sort of our core. That's what makes us who we are.
Yeah.
And throughout those themes, we want to focus people's minds and get people talking about their volunteering opportunities, the partnerships we work with in such as the Heritage Railway Association and the work they do in terms of lobbying in Parliament, the partnerships that we do in terms of working with each other and sharing locomotives for steam galas, right down to our volunteers and celebrating what they do. That they're the lifeblood of the railway essentially, and for many railways across the country, that's where we started from as a heritage railway. Many volunteers coming together to save these places, and I think we're now also going through a bit of a period of change from heritage railways where we're not now just saving these heritage railways, we're keeping them running now for future generations to enjoy and trying to encourage those next generations of volunteers to come and get involved for their children to come and see.
Yeah.
So it's really important.
I think there's been a lot of talk over the years about whether heritage railways and museums compete with each other. And I think the general consensus is they don't compete with each other, they complement each other.
Yes.
The more you see, the more you want to see more of them, and they bring people together. And I think the network that we have wouldn't exist without that complementary feeling. I don't think that they could exist very well in isolation.
No, not at all. And I think it would make, for example, steam galas, it would make steam galas very boring. They wouldn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
And to have that variety and to share the locomotives in different locations. I mean, we've got southern locomotives that are running up north. You would never have seen that. It just gives it a whole different feel. It gives crews a different idea of how different locomotives work. It's just, it's really good. It's really exciting. And yeah, it's great to see these events.
And from an educational point of view and the family point of view, I think because we're coming to the end of an era where people will be able to remember steam in real life, as it were, like on the big railway, and it's really important that working practices and the look of life at that time doesn't get forgotten, because it's so hard to relearn that.
And not just, I think, some of the life and there is that element to it, and I think life did change. A lot of people, the railways evolved the way we went on holiday. The railways evolved goods that we were able to get up and down the country, and we were able to get new things in our houses. I think it goes a little bit further than that as well. The social aspects of a heritage railway, as we've just touched upon, it's a great point of connection for people to get together, for people to get involved. They're just a really good environment with lots of different people with one common interest.
And that common interest thing is so important because you can be from completely different walks of life. But if you have something in common, you can talk for hours and hours and hours about that one thing. And especially railway enthusiasts, because we do tend to be a bit, obsessive.
And there's always something new to learn. I mean, it's amazing. You can, if you just go and have a chat with one of the volunteers, whether it's something from today or whether it's something on the locomotive now, or whether it's something we've got drivers there's still a couple of drivers who actually were firemen in BR days. And just to hear some of the stories and hear some of those memories, are just we've got to capture those before they're lost, unfortunately. And
yes.
Whilst we've evolved and whilst railways have evolved, I think it's important to see where we've come from.
Yeah, and how those things shape the world that we live in today.
Exactly.
With the themes that you're covering, can you tell me what's your personal favourite one? Do you have a favourite?
I do have a favourite. I think it's conservation. And I think the reason why it's conservation is it touches upon many elements. I think we see conservation as very much in the heritage railway world as we restore a locomotive and there we go, it's gleaming and it's shining. But it goes so much further than that. We've got heritage stations, we've got the rules and the regulations that we use. So most of those are still from an era that, when railways first started. Signalling equipment that people don't actually really see or interact with during their visit, that the amount of hours of work that goes into restoring these things is incredible. And we're very lucky as well, and I think many heritage railways are, but we've got an archive which has a huge amount of information in that we are looking to either digitize, to restore, to make sure that it's available for future generations to look at. We're looking at how we can use them in exhibitions and how we can make that information readily available for people to be able to go and have a look and see those resources. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of hidden aspects to a heritage railway that are now starting to come through, and I think they will do more and more.
Mm. Can you tell me about some of the highlights that you saw from the campaign last year?
I think what was great about last year was seeing actually so many of the interviews that I think some of the smaller railways that they were able to get on to BBC News or to local news, and which was a really nice opportunity. It was great to see some of the smaller railways getting some highlights that they wouldn't normally. And I think as well that the whole variety of railways. In fact, we've got anything from Crick Tramway Museum all the way through to the likes of the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, Severn Valley Railway. But even smaller railways are taking part, which is really good. And an operating system of hops now as well is also taking part, which many railways will use.
Well, a lot of people won't know about hops. But everybody in the heritage movement knows about it. Like everybody who's ever had to volunteer for anything knows what hops is it heritage operating?
I'm not quite sure what it stands for, but it's basically
processing system.
It's a system there to help rostering, to manage competency. And it's a communication tool for crews, and it's there to also store key documents as well. So.
And it just goes to show that all these things need this infrastructure behind them, and that's why we're all joined up, and that's why we need to operate like a big extended family.
Exactly.
And then how much coordination goes on behind the scenes for the campaign?
So we start the campaign back in January. Well, even before that, we're starting to think about it, and we're bouncing ideas off each other. But then, sort of January, February time, we're really starting to put the crux of the campaign together. One of the highlights this year, I think we've got on board with Hornby Railways, who are backing the campaign. They've put together a huge prize, which we're really grateful for, and I think that's raised a lot of awareness to a different audience altogether. Again, there's a lot of work and a lot of hours that go into it, but it's great to see so many people getting involved. Over 80 heritage railways this year. It was our target, but I think we're still growing. There's still railways wanting to get on board. So,
so can you tell us about some of the new additions for this year? Who have you seen this year that missed out on the first round?
So we've just had literally Linton and Barnstable.
Oh, brilliant!
They signed up. We've got the Great Laxey Mine Railway.
Yes.
The Leighton Buzzard Railway, again another one on there that haven't taken part before. Peak Rail. So there's quite a few on there now that are...
And even within those, you see a huge spectrum of like different things, like sort of narrow gauge common carrier, like an industrial railway, something going through like one of the most beautiful regions in the country, like that all sorts really.
And actually one today that really stuck out for me was the Linton and Lynmouth Cliff Railway. They signed up today. So, yeah, we're getting a huge variety, all sizes, all shapes, different types, which is, yeah, again, it highlights how railways were so diverse.
Absolutely. And how do you want enthusiasts and the general public to engage, and what's your ideal response from them?
Personally, I want people to get involved on social media. I want them to spread the word. If you're involved in a heritage railway, put something on supporting the Love Your Railway campaign onto your social media channels, a personal highlight, why you got involved, and encourage others to get involved too. Share those memories with your friends. Bring other people along with you. You never know, you might actually, there's a funny personal story. Actually, I went to school with a lad who I now volunteer with at the Heritage at Gloucester and Warwickshire Steam Railway. Never knew he was interested in steam railways. I never knew he never knew I was interested in steam railways, and it was actually on a work trip that I ended up bumping into him.
Well, I think you and I are of that generation where it's so frowned upon to be a crank, like in school. Like it was like the worst thing. It was like lambasted on TV all the time, lampoon. It was like you'd hide it from everybody. And then you meet people later on, they're like, oh yeah, I quite like trains as well. It's like, what? Why did you never tell me? Like, why did we never talk about this?
I know. I think that is quite common. I think, but it's great though. It's still, we reconnected. We still chat now, and in fact, we probably wouldn't have chatted before meeting again at the Heritage Railway. And it's only because of that we've reconnected, and yeah, it's great.
Fantastic. And then on the other side of things, what do you think are some of the greatest challenges facing the heritage movement going forward?
I think what's on everybody's mind at the moment is coal. That's a huge challenge at the moment. Coal and fuel prices are just going through the roof at the moment. I'm quite positive that we're working with working with partnerships, working with a company called CPL, who many people have heard of. There's a lot of trials going on at the moment who are making different blends of coal. So they're like a man-made coal in terms of an ovoid. And I think we're getting close to a solution for that. And hopefully that will keep us going into the future. Policy, and I think health and safety is an important topic at the moment, which is a good thing. I think it's a really positive step. I think we need to take a look and step back and have a look at risks and manage those risks and be able to bring people through the next generations.
Well, that's one of the other things about people not growing up in the age of steam and things like that. So when you grow up in a place that has the risk reduced, you're not as used to it being around you. And so, I mean, we get it all the time at the railway where I volunteer, is that the general public just don't quite understand how dangerous these things can be and why they require an amount of respect and cautiousness around them, why you can't do certain things. And I think a lot of it is about educating the public and your own volunteers about it, that these are big machines. They are huge lumps of metal.
And I think one of the huge challenges we face right now, I think, is volunteers. I don't think we would be able to survive without volunteers. And I think probably many heritage railways are in that situation as well. And it's how do we attract that next generation of volunteers? It's not necessarily the ones who are coming in now. It's how do you attract the youngsters, we possibly had Thomas the Tank and various bits, various programs that were on the TV that brought us and got us hooked in. That's not quite there, and that's in the same level anymore. So what do we do to encourage the next generation? I think that's going to be a huge challenge.
Definitely. And will Love Your Railway be coming back in 2023?
I hope so.
Is it too early to ask?
It is too early to ask. Yeah, we're still going through this year. But yes, I would like to see Love Your Railway back next year. I would like to see a few more. There's got a few more ideas that we've got up our sleeve. I'd like to try and take Love Your Railway to the people a little bit more. So yeah, hopefully bigger and better next year again.
And what should people look out for online? How will people see elements of the campaign? So
to get involved or to see what's going on out there, if you search for the hashtag Love Your Railway and then scroll through the feeds, you'll see many railways taking part. But the other thing you can do is search for your local heritage railway on Google. Just put in Steam Railway near me and make sure you go and visit this summer. It's so crucial for people to go and get involved. Even if it's just to go and see it pass under a bridge, just see it, feel it, get involved. Like I say, share a photo on social media. Hopefully you'll get hooked.
Excellent. Luke, thanks so much for joining us today. I really hope the rest of the campaign's a success, and we hope to have you back on the show.
Great stuff. Thank you very much.